Welcome back everybody to another one of my time-lapse model build videos, and in this video we're going to be looking at the building of my 1/48 scale Accurate Miniatures Dauntless. I believe it's an SBD-5, a later war version of the Dauntless. Now it suffers from some of the issues that most Accurate Miniatures kits do, which is just the detail is so fine that they can become really difficult to build. A lot of little fiddly bits that you kind of have to fit just perfect, or it doesn't go together right. This one isn't as bad as others. I found the B25 had some really bad, fiddly, really thin, tiny parts. This one had a bit. Luckily, I was able to get it all together without too many issues. So without further ado, let's get over to the desk. Let's watch the building of this kit. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. As usual with these aircraft kits, I do start off with the cockpit. Now, just as a heads up for this video, I didn't do as many sort of model update sections in this. It's a lot more time-lapse and a lot less me describing the kit, so there will be a little bit more of this voiceover in this one to get that content across to you, but at the end it's still the final model. So as I said, here I am starting the cockpit. And as I get the cockpit painted, I go through here and start the weathering process. It's just the usual basic black wash on all the detail parts, and I do a bit of a highlight with a dry brushing with a light gray to get the surface details. So you have the base green, the black wash kind of darkens the corners and the shadows, and then the dry brushing with a light gray pops the surface highlights, and you get this really nice depth of color to really make everything pop and make it look realistic. this here is pretty much the only puttying that I had to do on this kit. It's just this rear wing kind of fuselage joint. It just didn't quite want to sit right, and there was quite a bit of gapping and stepping in this. So it was a bit of a sanding to blend it all down, then a bit of putty, some more sanding at the end. It turned out looking really well. You can barely tell there's a seam there. So it was really the only kind of hiccup seam-wise with the entire aircraft. So unfortunately along this point here, I've got the camera zoomed in a little bit, so you're losing some of the work that's happening just off frame. But as you can see here, I've got the engine painted Alclad. I believe it's Alclad stainless steel. I also did the ring, kind of the forward bulkhead behind the engine. The firewall area that goes under the cowling has also been painted in the Alclad stainless steel. And I got the front half, or the front face of the engine, that gear reduction case with all of the push rods and everything has been painted. I leave that separate to the end because I want to flat coat that front part of the engine, but I don't want to flat coat the actual metallic part. So I keep the two parts separate until after the flat coat, and then I glue everything up and assemble it all at the end, which you'll see. So here I start the process of masking. You'll see not only do I mask that forward canopy, I mask that stainless steel outclad section that I painted on the front because I don't want that to get oversprayed and or flat coated. I mask it off now. I complete all the other painting and flat coat and everything I need, and then I pull this masking off at the end. The other thing you're going to notice is I don't put the actual canopy sections in place because I'm going to build it with the canopies open. I use the included one-piece rear canopy for the closed version, and I just tack it on and I use that as a masking. Instead of masking everything off, I just use that. It doesn't matter if it gets overspray. It's super easy to paint, and at the end I'll pull that off and then glue all those individual sections that have been pre-painted onto the fuselage. And as I stated, I don't really do that much in terms of stopping and talking about what I'm doing. So in this section here, you'll see I got the aircraft primed. And then I go ahead and I do sort of the pre-shading, black panel line pre-shading along the belly. And I get that painted white. And then from there, I'll mask off the white section, and I'll go ahead and paint the intermediate blue. Excuse me, that's like the mid-range color. And then from there, I do the dark blue on the top, and I hard line the white section between the white and the intermediate blue. But then I use a little like putty sausages to make a feathered line between the dark blue and the intermediate blue, and it just breaks it up a little bit and gives some visual interest to the paint scheme. So here we are, just do a quick mid-build update before we go any farther. If you've been actually watching this and not just having it playing off the background, you have seen that it is painted and it is gloss coated, and I am basically ready to go with the decals. Not a lot of decals on these things. It's mostly just the main markings, a couple of small stencils, and that's about it. So it shouldn't take too long to get these done, and then I can go through and start getting the final assembly done. Get a little bit of weathering done on it, get it flat coated, and then I can pull the masking off the front, get the engine installed, pull the canopy off, start getting the rest of the canopies in, get the landing gear glued together, everything installed. This is picking away at things. It's going to be a bit of a chore, but it will get done. It shouldn't take too long. But yeah, so here we are, ready to go for the decal. So far so good. Haven't really had any real issues with this. It's gone together pretty smoothly. The painting went down nice, and it looks really good. It's going to look good on the shelf with everything else I got going on. So that is the mid-build status of the Dauntless. And if you notice here, this roundel, the stars and bars, it's the same size as the wing, and it is way oversized for the side of the fuselage. So I start going through my spare decals that I have left over from all the other kits, and I find a fuselage roundel that is a little bit more accurate for size. It's actually from an old Testors P51D. The color blue, that it's just a slightly shade of blue from the initial, but it's about the right size based off of pictures in the image and the instructions. That looks a bit better than this big giant one, and I end up using that for the fuselage decals. So I figured it's a good time to do a quick update on the Dauntless. It's ready for weathering. So it is effectively done. Paint was done, gloss was done, decals are down. I'm going to go ahead and do a weathering pass on this. I do plan to do this a little bit on the heavier side. So I'm going to do it a little bit different than I have in the past, whereas normally I would do a watered down version, put it on, let it dry, wipe it off. I'm going to go basically straight onto the airframe. I've got my black temper paint. I'm going to go straight on the airframe, wipe it while it's wet. That'll get nice dark sort of impact, especially on the bottom with the white, get a lot of dirt going on in there. Then I'll go through with my Tamiya panel line accent. I'll get into the corners and really get those corners popping on the bottom, especially the bottom. I really want to weather the bottom up. The top, it's already dark, so it's not going to be quite as noticeable. But the bottom is where you're going to see a lot of the weathering. You're not going to see much when it's sitting on the ground, but it'll turn out in pictures. So on that note, I'm just going to jump into this. So not much left to go on this. The next time you hear my voice on this video, I'm most likely, or in this type of update, it should be finished. Excuse me. So let's get the weathering done, and we'll continue on. Here I'm using some of those Vallejo weathering effects. I've got a bit of an engine oil and a fuel stain color. There's like a rusty brown and more of a muddy brown. And I'm just using those to kind of make it look like there's a little bit of some leaking oil and whatnot across the bottom of the plane just to dirty up the belly. You can see that's really starting to look like it's a dirty, used aircraft when I start doing this. And you can see here I start installing the dive flaps. And as I mentioned, I'm a little disappointed at how closed the flaps stayed. I expected them to look quite a bit more open. Pictures and references showed the dive brakes opening to a pretty wide angle, and the kit pieces just didn't allow for that. With a bit of effort, I probably could have modified them. I just didn't feel like going through all that hassle this late in the stage of the game for something that just, 99% of people wouldn't know looking at it. So I just went ahead and built it as it was out of the box. It's one of the only things that bothers me with the kit, but it still looks good. I like the way the red inside the flaps pop and just give it that splash of color. And that's kind of what I was going for. So at the end of the day, it still looks good. It's just not quite exactly what I was looking for. And then here at this late stage, you'll see I start getting the canopy sections glued into place. I also get that machine gun for the rear canopy or the rear gunner assembled, painted, weathered, and installed. And then all the little tiny things I have to do, like the pitot tubes and the oleos on the landing gear and the landing lights and all that kind of stuff, the nav lights, all that gets painted up. And then the final aircraft is done, and we'll see that in a second. there is the finished kit. So we'll, the only thing really I did off camera that you wouldn't have seen me do was the exhaust staining down the sides. I just did that with a little bit of thinned black paint, and it's finished. So let's take a quick look at some pictures I took of this, the final sort of photo shoot of the finished model, and that will be it for my 1/48 scale Accurate Miniatures Dauntless. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.